Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to This Week in Bitcoin. Today is November the 13th, 2020. Strong hand, long-term thinking. Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin, unconfiscatable. I'm offended by selling. One day closer to an all-time high. One Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin. Value your wealth in Bitcoin. All right, we're in the golden age of the 2020s, baby. You're in motion. These guests are freaking in motion. Yeah, Tommy has returned to the freaking show over at Bitcoin Magazine. Gordon Einstein, he makes his debut on the show. Juan Galt, we have no idea where Juan Galt is. Right? He will show up. Perhaps he won't show up. He's supposed to show up, but who knows what's going on over there. Anyway, hello, my elite friends. If you have questions, I have answers. These guys have answers. You can ask questions in the chat, get my attention somehow. All right, now we're gonna jump into this show, and we're gonna talk about something. Juan Galt actually had a tweet where he was a little bit worried, telling people that Bitcoin could still go under $10,000. We just had a big election here in the United States. Maybe you guys heard about it. And I was concerned that there would be major turbulence after the election, craziness going on in the streets. But what we've had is it's pretty clear. It looks like we know who won. There's a lot of legal mumbo jumbo going on, and that's fair. That's cool. Bitcoin reacted very well afterwards. And I said beforehand, if we get through this election unscathed, if it's relatively normal, I don't think we're returning to that 4-digit realm. I think we are in the 5-digit realm for life. So we're going to start on that positive note with Gordon. Do you think we could go back below 10K? And what is your take on the political situation? Could there be a major turbulent situation that could send Bitcoin lower again? And will the Biden administration, that looks like it's going to come into power in January, will it matter what they do with Bitcoin?
That was a lot of questions, but I'm very happy to be on the show with this esteemed group. Thank you so much. Would it ever go back under 10,000? Of course, I'm gonna give a lawyer answer. It's possible. I remember the past several times recently, it went over 10,000 and went under, and everything you were seeing on social media was, this is your, what next. Every time it went under, it said this is the last time you can ever buy under 10,000, and that was a meme. And finally, the third or fourth time it happened, people got kind of tired of posting that. So is it possible? Sure. If there was a massive, I think we'll get into that during the show, but if there was like a massive attempt to outlaw it by the failing fiat systems, that could dive the price momentarily. Or who knows? Or the power grid goes down, or if the internet gets segmented, for example. Okay, that's something that could push it down, because then you're kind of hitting the foundations of the coin. But given its non-inflationary nature and the inherent inflationary nature of every other fiat, the natural tendency is for it to go up over time, though it's going to oscillate obviously along that path. So I don't think we should mistake volatility for the long-term trend. But can volatility hit any moment? Sure. Would I bet against it? No. You don't make money by there's a famous statement: the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. And I don't think a good path to staying solvent is to sell your Bitcoin or bet that will go under 10,000. So sure, it's possible, but it's increasingly unlikely. I think the second
we will talk about Ray Dalio. You made a Ray Dalio reference allusion there. You didn't have to say his name, but it will be talked about later in the show. Pound that like button, people. Continue. Sorry to interrupt you.
No problem. This election, yes, there was no rioting in the street because apparently Biden won. Okay, and it's not like the Trump followers, whatever people say about them, and I don't agree really with what they say about them. These aren't the go out and go into Beverly Hills and smash the windows crowd. So the other ones would have been attention to that. But believe me, if Trump had won, there would have been violence. And right now, just to remind everyone, the Associated Press does not decide who the president of the United States is. The Electoral College does. And the Electoral, and once they decide, it's done, and we should all, I think, accept the result. But I think this sort of preemptive deciding of, especially the day of the election or the days after the election, the preemptive sort of determination that Trump had clearly lost and there was no fraud going on, nothing at all, nothing to see here, folks, keep on moving, was kind of a narrative to set up the situation where, imagine if the courts do find fraud or investigations do find fraud and they reverse it. We're going to have more violence than we would have had if Trump had just won, because you're taking away the candy from the baby as opposed to the baby not even seeing the candy in the first place. So, all these snowflakes that are trying to work out their daddy issues, I can put on their black rags and trying to, smash a couple windows, and kind of go beyond that. So it's, sure, we don't have violence. Now, is it good we don't have violence? Yes. Is it the fact that there's a purposeful intimidation tactic going on to make people hesitant about finding otherwise? Like, I want whoever legitimately won to win. If Biden legitimately won, and I personally think he did, to be clear, okay, good or bad, I personally think he actually won. But I could be wrong. I wasn't in the polling booths. I'm not in the inner rooms of power. I could be wrong. And that's why, as an American who wants elections to be free, fair, open, and right, I want the process to play out. I mean, we gave Al Gore and Bush in 2037 days to figure this out. It went up to the Supreme Court. And I remember when it was happening, they were doing alternating, news conferences and kind of had a competition to see who would have more American flags behind them. That's how this should be fought out. It shouldn't be fought out by a bunch of, I don't know, MGTOW losers trying to work, on the streets. So, sorry.
That's another word we're not allowed to say.
Sorry, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that was banned.
Usually that word doesn't come up here, but amazingly, the algorithm does not like the MGTOW word. I like MG. By the way, don't be ripping on the MG. Don't be ripping on the men going their own way. Men going their own way. That's a good thing.
I actually meant to do INCEL.
Yes. Okay. And don't say that either, because
that's actually what I meant. I think there is something to the MG one that I don't totally dispute, but the IN one, not so strong. And then I think what your question next one was.
I want to say something here. You're taking candy from a baby. I mean, it was. I really like that. I really like that comparison you made, because some of these people. I don't want to get too political here, but we definitely live in a nation where people are so spoiled and they don't get their way. They have they go to the streets and start tearing things down. It's like a baby. It's like taking candy.
Am I allowed to? I mean, the acronym is the word. Am I allowed to say SJ something?
You can say SJW. You can.
Okay. So yes. I mean, SHW breakdown videos on YouTube trend for a reason, okay? And when Republicans have their breakdowns, it's a bunch of, kind of guys and girls in their 40s or 50s chanting, like, we're angry for, like, for all 5 minutes. It's a totally different vibe. So, good.
Okay, now I remember what my now, Tommy, you I hope you're keeping track of all this, because you're going to have to reply to all of it. But
I feel like Tommy and I are aligned. I can tell by his facial expressions.
I also, I mean, it would. I think Biden won too. I'm not a Biden supporter, but it appears that he does. So, but I obviously take your time. But I will say this: it appears all the financial markets are using the logic and reason that we are using here. That it's nothing out of the ordinary to question the votes. It looks pretty obvious who won. So we're not on the verge of some tyrannical coup or anything like that. Thus, Bitcoin is soaring. Other financial instruments are doing well. Had other situations played out, I think we would still be having turbulence. And thus, I don't see. I think we have avoided just such a major issue that had been hyped up for so long and it's been 210,000 blocks since we left the 3-digit realm. I do not see a return to the 4-digit realm at this point. And I don't usually make very bold statements in terms of price like that. I don't like to make price predictions at all. But I think we've entered the point of no return, which is great. And sure, there could be some controversy in Michigan or whatever. But I see things going relatively smoothly. And the last part of the question was, do you? Well, no. Let's go.
Well, can I respond to something you said, or may I?
Yeah, please. Yeah, say something. Yeah.
Just real quick. So the price of Bitcoin, there's arguments that stability will increase the price. There's arguments that instability will increase the price of Bitcoin. I'd say in a way it's almost like the rise of China. Like this happens, that happens, this happens, that happens. Drama. But the trajectory is clear.
Yes.
And there's a tendency to assign too much meaning and causality to the day-to-day and kind of point to something that's inexorably going a certain direction and say it's being caused by this. It's not, sure, that's a little data point, but the long-term trend is clear. If there had been insurrection in the United States, and there still might be, depending on where this court, you can make a good argument that, well, fine, you want to decouple from the US dollar. If there's stability here, well, then we got a bunch of socialists coming in with huge tax rates. And, yes, we all got 4 more years to get our second passport now, maybe. But
and that's both ways. What you're alluding to. That's the second part of the question. We're going to get back. We're going to get back to what a Biden administration might bring. But I want to clarify one thing here. March 12th. What happened on March 12th? When it seemed like it was the end of the world because this new virus was here, and the price, everything dropped. And I've said in the price of Bitcoin dropped into the 3,000s for a few seconds. I picked up 2 Bitcoin very cheap. I spent $10,000 total on 2 Bitcoin, and because it was just a ridiculous, unexpected, unnecessary, total panic-driven drop. Mm-hmm. And that is what I thought could have happened in relation with this election. And I don't think that will. I don't think we'll ever. We'll have something like that in the future, but nothing to bring it down to the below 10,000 get. But all right, let's go to and some people say it was March the 13th, which was Friday the 13th. Today is the first Friday the 13th since the March 13th, Friday the 13th. Ooh, you never know what might happen. All right, so Tommy, take it away. You can say anything you want to about if you think it'll ever go to the 4-digit realm again. Just everything we've been talking about.
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me back on the show. I don't really make price predictions, kind of like what you said. I don't like to go in there, but I will say that I am extremely bullish. I don't like these price moves going up to 16K, 15K. Like it really hasn't felt all that crazy since I was there when we had a 5,000 candle day back in 2017, and we're still not really seeing anything that we didn't see before. But the newbies that weren't there are getting all excited, and I think we're seeing a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm going to take my gains now," and they sell their Bitcoin at 15, 16K. So there's still a lot of newbies out there that have a lot to learn. So will it drop below 10K again? I mean, I wouldn't put my money on no, right? I would say there's a good chance it could.
Okay.
Sorry, I've got my
it cut off. Did
I
hear you
in here distracting me?
He said no. He says. You said you think it will.
You said you think it will go under 10K?
It could.
I think there's a good chance that it could before it just goes completely berserk and never comes back down to earth. But I think those days are upon us. I think stack sats. I mean,
we're closer to 20.
They're not going to be this cheap for a while.
But we're closer to 20K than we are to 10K. All right, and so it's okay. You've got that take. I don't know what could bring. I just don't know what could bring it down to that level again. I don't see any event and I just see I believe in the 210,000 block theory, and we're 210,000 blocks ago. We were starting that big uptrend, and I think we're starting that big old uptrend right now. And dropping
there's 6 months.
Dropping $6,000 from now. That's a lot to ask. But hey, if my hand is as strong as ever, dudes, nothing will make me there'll be no panicking here. Now, I want to ask you, Tommy, what is your take on the Biden administration and what they're going to do with Bitcoin, if anything, if it will make any bit of a difference they're going to obviously print a lot of money. The Trump administration would have printed a lot of money too. What do you think?
Yeah, I think money printer is going to go burr like we've never seen before, never thought could happen before. And I think that's going to be great for Bitcoin. Like you said, I think that would have happened with Trump. But with Biden, I don't even know if there's going to be a roof on the thing. They're just going to keep printing as much as they possibly can. I hope that goes along with some form of UBI so that people have an opportunity to invest in Bitcoin without really having to make too hard of a life choice about it, because that really is what's keeping us from the realization of hyper Bitcoinization. I think is people are still hesitant to go all in or to go in enough to really matter for them in the long run, because of all this uncertainty in the economy and just in the world in general. But I think if people got some stimulus along with a little bit of education, like what we're trying, money is going to flow right into Bitcoin. And as the money printer go burr, Bitcoin number go up.
Now, I do want to point out something to everyone, that we do not live in a dictatorship or anything like that. There are checks and balances still, and that the Senate of the United States should remain Republican. Thus, there was actually a scenario where the money printing could have gone, all the socialist policies that you can name would have went wild had the Senate went to a Democrat. But I see the Republicans, of course, will be guilty in the Senate to say, well, it's Christmas time, we gotta have a check printing. It's January, or we need one every month. But they will put their foot down with some things. So we could have the inflation that is expected could have been worse under a different scenario. So this is not the worst case scenario for inflation out there.
Right. I mean, I'm not thinking it's going to be the 100 trillion money printer go burr, but it'll be the multi-trillion burr.
So. Let me throw this in here. So without naming it exactly, there's rumor has it a lot of people are catching the flu these days. And if that gets very intense, and there's more shutdowns and more lack of economic activity, restaurants closures, factories closures, all this fun stuff, the burr we've seen is going to be Weimar-esque, because there's going to be no liquidity in the system. People are not going to be earning. And also, some of us say socialism facetiously. I don't know, even if you're not ideologically socialist, if you're in the government in this position and you need to keep liquidity in the system, you're going to start distributing wealth just to keep people alive and things functional, and to keep the houses from being burnt down. And the moment you print new fiat, it's a indirect but extremely real tax on everyone. And we're heading there no matter what. We're heading there in the US. We're heading there no matter what, because we need to confront China. We're heading there because we have to pay interest on the debt. We're getting there because a lot of people are dependent on the government. We're getting there because of this flu that seems to be running around. Flu.
Automation.
Say again, please. Oh yeah, and automation. Yeah, that kind of goes to the UBI aspect is interesting. And your comment is interesting that that may form of a source of people who have funds to buy Bitcoin. I haven't heard that one before. That's clever.
Come on now, man. That's what it's all about for us Bitcoiners.
I call it the off ramp. I call it the safe way to off ramp people off of their dirty fiat onto the future economy. It's UBI plus Bitcoin, because the fiat, I mean, they're doomed to collapse from the start. So it's about whether or not there's going to be a smooth transition or a violent transition to whatever that next paradigm is. And if it's going to be Bitcoin, which I think we all agree it is, you definitely want that transition to be a little safer and result in less of a violent revolution, I guess. But it might be controversial to say that UBI would be the off ramp from fiat to Bitcoin, but that's exactly how I see it, and that's part of the reason why I push for it.
Do you think the funding or the amounts of UBI being dispensed when you take in account people's living expenses, do you think there'll be enough of a surplus for them to buy enough Bitcoin that will make a difference?
So that's kind of the balance, right? You don't want to just do it so crazy that it kills itself immediately. And I'm kind of for a conservative version of UBI, but I think that's why it takes also the education that, hey, like, we know that this is just getting you by, but put some aside. Obviously, invest. Like, think of Bitcoin as a savings technology instead of, like, putting it in your savings account in your bank, which is essentially just another checking account, right? So, like, if you can just educate, but the point is, if people don't have that money and they don't have any money at all, and they're just barely scraping by, then they're not even going to listen to you when you're trying to tell them how to save money, because they don't have any money to save or invest. So it's it's a delicate thing to wean the millions and millions of people off of fiat, but that's what we're here for.
Let me throw something as you were speaking. It was evocative to me of the Chinese position of having so many U.S. treasuries that they can't crash the U.S. economy, because then all those treasuries are worthless. And they're trying to dilute away from there slowly, because they want to cause a panic to rush out the door. So they're like rediverting their funds into, say, the One Belt, One Road or infrastructure investments. Because they need to dilute their position. They can't just have it all go down quickly. But to manage that process over time is rough. And if someone else beats you out the door and the theater's burning, then you got a potential issue there. So it's interesting how you're putting it.
I want to read something from the audience that talking about a financial panic here. But March 12th panic was this is from Brian Jacoteau. March 12th panic was a reckoning for the over-levered in all industries. Showed how much of the economy was propped up by debt. Now not as much room for panic with the debt shook out. All right. A point there. I want Gordon. What is your take on what the Biden administration, what their exact policies will be financially, and if it will matter for Bitcoin, if they will even care about Bitcoin at all?
So I wish him well, but I think this Biden administration is going to end up being the Harris administration within single 1 or 2 years. Okay, and
it's reasonable, yeah,
and
trying to hide it.
Yeah, I mean, may he live long and prosper, but I don't think he's going to live long and prosper in the Oval Office. And you see him, you see how he looks, you see how he speaks. He's had a long, whether you agree with him or not, he's had a long, distinguished career in public service. So I don't wish him ill. I don't actually wish her, Kamala Harris, ill. She's done some interesting stuff, but we're quickly going to head into a Harris administration. Either de facto or if he'll resign de jure. And if you look at her record and how she speaks and things she promotes, she's like another AOC iteration. Okay, and I'm not on the AOC hate watch. She's actually kind of interesting, but they're clear that they are not overly friendly to business, that they want to raise taxes, that they want to redistribute wealth, that they believe in a certain narrative about society. And that narrative leads to redistribution of wealth as opposed to wealth creation. Like, I'm going to take what that person has because they have it because they're evil, as opposed to, wow, I'm going to make something new. And the primary mechanisms for doing that are taxation and printing money. And we're heading into a real, right at the moment where COVID is taking away people's income, that's the exact moment when tax rates are going to get raised. And especially if you're in California, fun times. Syncits is looking better and better. So whatever administration came in, they would have to do this. But now we got a social justice aspect to the meme world, if you like, that's going to increase taxes. In terms of policies, I posted on Facebook. It's like, okay, if Biden wins, which country do we invade now? Because we just had 4 years of not invading a country. I don't remember the last time that happened. And
probably, well, no, I don't want to get us censored. So
I'm speaking around. It's funny. I'm imitating some of my favorite YouTubers in that I'm being circumventing exact language. But there's Trump, I thought, was surprisingly effective in renegotiating or starting to renegotiate our economic relationship with China, especially, but also with Europe. And everyone was moaning and screaming about what he was doing, but there was some effective stuff in there. And we've been moving supply chains and infrastructure to China for 30, 40 years now. It's not going to reverse in a 4-year term. It just couldn't have. But the context change he made and the progress he made just in that time, facing huge opposition, was pretty substantial. I don't think Biden and Harris are going to continue that process. I think they may step up maybe military confrontation with China, Russia, and Iran, but I don't think they're going to pursue this sort of economic nationalist tract. And when I say we, the United States, are losing position in the South China Sea right now. I can see, if let me change slightly. One of the scariest things about COVID, about the flu that was going around, I don't even know what I just said, was when I heard reports of sailors on the U.S. Navy being sick. And a captain reported that he couldn't operate and was shut down by the chain of command, and then went public with it, got punished, and then got the charges against him dropped because he had to say it. Now, the backbone of American power and Pax Americana is our aircraft carriers. Well, those are turning to white elephants anyways, just because of drone technology, long-range missiles, everything else. But if 1 or 2 aircraft carriers had their crews infected by something, and we were unable to rotate simultaneously in the Middle East and the South China Sea, I mean, stuff's going to happen. If it had gotten much worse during Trump's term, I thought it would happen now. I think we're going to see some unfriendly action during the Biden administration. So, it's interesting times coming up.
All right, let's tie it into, speaking of interesting times and legal issues here. What did you think of Ray Dalio saying he believes nations will outlaw Bitcoin if the Bitcoin price keeps rising? Now, he said nations. So there's a difference between the United States as a nation and some third world banana republic nation. I think plenty of nations are going to outlaw Bitcoin, and that have sort of already have. Even with Biden as president or Harris as president, I don't see them outlawing Bitcoin. It's not up on their list. They've got other things to deal with. I mean, they bread and circuses to deal with and whatnot. So I'm not. I don't know what Ray is not a. Ray doesn't like Bitcoin very much.
So to effectively outlaw Bitcoin, you would have to. Okay, there's outlawing it in law, and then there's making it so it actually dies. And the whole nature, it was designed from the get-go by Satoshi, and he and others were clear about this in their anonymous or pseudo-anonymous selves, that it was designed to take into account all the experiences that had happened before with this person or that person trying to come up with a digital alternative currency. And there's things that started in Panama. There's things that happen here. They were getting rid of centralization. They're getting rid of points of failure. They're getting rid of the fact that this thing may be not censorable, but your life is, and it's designed to work around that. To really take down Bitcoin, you'd have to have an electrical failure and a true internet failure, or an internet segmentation. Or you'd have to have a global one world government, which, conspiracy Illuminati stuff, but beside, we're hardly there. Believe me, the Chinese and the US government are not one government. So that's not even that's like some weird fantasy lizard people thing. Okay, so it's, yes, as national governments with strong currencies begin to lose their ability to engage in Keynesian stimulus, they're naturally going to be biased against Bitcoin. It's natural. But thank God we're in a polyarchic or anarchic international system where what benefits one country doesn't necessarily benefit another, and they act differently. That's sort of like a bastion of freedom that we have right now. And to the extent that, say, the United States doesn't like Bitcoin because it's preventing it's eroding our dollar dominance, like many other things, and preventing our ability to engage in Keynesian stimulus, that's a reason for our strategic competitors to love Bitcoin. Now, I'm not a bit, I don't want them to defeat the U.S., but the U.S. can't tell Russia what to do, can't tell Iran what to do, can't tell, without losing a lot of money and blood and treasure, tell Venezuela what to do. We're definitely not telling China what to do. So it's not going to happen. And China, China's a mixed bag. They're, everyone says they're anti-crypto, but all the communist princelings are the ones running the majority of the mining on the planet. So, Ray Dalio is generally a smart guy, but I think that's a provocative headline that I'm sure he added more nuance to when he got into it. All right, I'm going to outlaw gravity. Okay, gravity cares what you think.
Tommy, what's your take on Ray Dalio? You got some things to say.
Yeah, I mean, this is just like one of those perfect examples of somebody who's is smart enough to get it, gets it, but is I hesitate to say because I don't actually know this guy, but saying broadly speaking, the people that get Bitcoin and then say stuff like this, excuse me, they're just cowards. Like the whole point of Bitcoin is to not have a currency that can get banned. So it's like if you're saying that you understand that this is something that will get out of the control.
Whoa.
Oh, can I comment?
So they're obviously going to try to fight. They're going to try to shut it down.
Tommy,
and you're just kind of sitting by this.
Lost you there for a second. You
sideline saying, "Yeah, that's going to happen." Dip
Wait, back up a little bit. Tommy, you hear me?
Yeah. Where did
you said out of control?
Too quick for the airwaves.
Yeah. Out of control.
Yeah, I mean, right. The governments are going to try to control it because as it eats their fiat systems alive, of course. But to have the knowledge of what's going to happen, it means that you're complacent in the way that things are currently, and you're rooting for the fiat system in a way. So that's just my take on when people say stuff like that. To me, it's just like they've labeled themselves as the part of the enemy of Bitcoin.
He is rooting for the fiat system. Yeah, why wouldn't he be?
He's clearly done well.
Yeah.
Let me make one comment on that. There's like I didn't follow what he said too closely, to be honest, but he's either making an observation or he's advocating an outcome. If he's making an observation that governments feel threatened by Bitcoin and some may attempt to ban it, then I don't think he's cowardly or uncowardly. I think it's obvious. A doctor, diagnosing a situation objectively. If he's advocating that, then it's like, okay, boomer. And I'm pretty close to him in age, I guess. It's like, okay, nice try. Your 401k isn't, you're letting your 401k think for you. That's not the way it's going to play out. I think it's whistling past the graveyard to think that the governments aren't going to try, and that won't have some effect sometime in some ways. But that doesn't alter the fundamental principle that barring a systemic global attack or breakdown, this is something that's very hard to reverse in the long term.
Well, now that we're talking about the Biden admin, do you think, this is bonus question here, in the next 4 years, will whoever's in charge, will they be bold? I think this is so far-fetched, but I'll just ask you guys anyway, since Ray Dalio threw it out there, that the United States could propose a Bitcoin ban after all the.
LME, sure. I mean, Nixon, when he took us off the gold standard, banned private holding of gold. Okay, and that's a much more accepted. The sheeple are much more comfortable with gold than they are with Bitcoin, and they pulled that off. Okay, and don't tell me that people are better thinking or more self-responsible now. Okay, or that we have more cohesion now, or we respect individual rights now, or we respect property more now. Think what it's like. The government actually told Americans who hold their guns like their third child, I adopted this one. I love it. Don't say anything bad. But they let go of their gold. That's insane. But they did it. And so, sure, they could. The question is, should they? That's a different question. Will they? That's a different question. Could they? Is it within the realm of non-conspiratorial possibility? Absolutely. If there's, and you see the political fracturing in this country, and you see the lack of understanding not necessarily on the part of the bureaucracy, but the elected officials. I mean, it's like when Mark Zuckerberg went up there and was answering questions about Cambridge Analytica and Facebook and how it all works. The epic cluelessness of the Congress people who were trying to interrogate him was epic and clueless. Okay, and and we're talking about Facebook. Okay, my mom uses Facebook. When you start talking about it, elliptical curve algorithms and cryptographic proofs and all the keys, blah blah blah. You see their eyes glaze over and their bodies kind of are reaching for like some nirvana. So they may do it out of ignorance. Now, that being said, you're finally, I think, beginning to see the United States a recognition that the world is not, whatever our ego says, the world doesn't follow our lead. And we can poo-poo it, we can ignore it, we can deny it, we can, try to dissuade people from it, but the world is moving this direction. You got central bank digital currency from China, from the Marshall Islands, from Europe. Everyone's experimenting, everyone's playing. So sure, we may try to ban Bitcoin, but that's like the death rattle. That's like, I gave up, I can't run in this race, so I'm gonna ban the race. It's like, okay, good luck. Meanwhile, they're gonna take you out in your wheelchair. Bye, Grandpa. So, and I said, look, I love the United States. My dad escaped here from the Holocaust in Germany and served in the Air Force. It's like I freaking love this place, and it pisses me off to see the lack of vision and the lack of competitiveness in our government. This ego of thinking you're so good, too cool for school, and meanwhile the little kid's beating up the bully.
You know what? It's innovation that drives the economy, and it's government regulation that stifles innovation. And they'll never really get that. I do want to say one thing here. The Sci-Flyer67 had a very good comment. He says, I would be worried that the governments would pull a Cyprus situation and bail in everyone's Bitcoin that's on an exchange. Yeah, that's dude, that's why you don't keep your Bitcoin on the exchange. Surely some country will try that one day. Like, it's a huge honeypot. These exchanges that they got people's Bitcoin on it, and but that's not Bitcoin is still unconfiscatable if you're properly holding it. So yeah, I don't see the United States or any trying to ban Bitcoin, because it's already it's a honeypot for the United States. It's a taxation honeypot for the United States. There are innovative businesses that are already built around Bitcoin, Coinbase, all this. That we're talking about ETFs in the future. I think it's the point of no return in how Bitcoin has already ingrained itself in the United States financial system. I think it would be insane. And I can't think of anyone who's going to be in power in the next 4 years who would try to make it illegal. And again, there's some Congress people that are that insane. Yeah, they were complaining that the United States, the office of the controller had paid too much attention to cryptocurrency or something. It's completely ridiculous. But and another thing that was pointed out in the chat in terms of trying to make Bitcoin illegal in the United States. I mean, again, we still do have the Congress and the Senate. The Senate would have to agree, and there'd have to be a lot of agreement there. I don't think it could be done by executive order, but maybe, who knows. And then Brian also said in the chat the problems with a U.S. Bitcoin ban: First Amendment, Fourth Amendment. Congress is not a monolith. Okay. Still has bigger fish to fry. Yeah, and there are big. Okay, but what's your take on that? If countries are making Bitcoin illegal?
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please. That's okay. Go.
Well, I was just gonna say you kind of hit the nail on the head there. I think it's more likely that they kind of go after all the custodial solutions that are out there, and I mean, I don't know if you'll get censored if I say that the U.S. federal government is the mafia. It's the biggest one there is, and they're going to get their cut. So any custodial solution, and even if you do hold your own Bitcoin the right way, if they can tie the Bitcoin to you, they're going to find their way to force it into their pockets through taxation one way or the other. I think that's a lot more likely that we get that than an all-out attempt to ban it, because if the United States government moves to do something like that, it would be like the biggest Super Bowl commercial for Bitcoin on a worldwide scale, and they would just enact every Bitcoiner in the world to just completely go all out against this, and it would be that death rattle like you described, and it would just, even if somehow the U.S. government was able to keep people here from buying it, globally it would skyrocket. And I mean, yeah, it would just be a foolish move, I think, if they were genuinely trying to slow the rate at which Bitcoin eats the U.S. dollar.
Go ahead. I think it would be an ultimate signaling of national impotence, because it means that we can't compete. Let me take a step back. So when Libra was announced, version 1.0 of Libra, the reaction was vast and swift. And I actually visited Libra headquarters in Geneva and popped in there. It's just PayPal in a co-working space. There's nothing there. There's no there. When Libra was first announced, of course, because of the Facebook relationship, everyone's like, yeah, right. But the United States and Europe was super fast to note that Libra represented a potential threat to their fiat systems, because by having Libra backed but not exchangeable for a bundle of securities and solid investments like government bonds, you were removing the ability of governments to control their currency and engage in Keynesian stimulus. And the reaction was harsh and vast. And what shocked me at the time was they were so clear about the fact that if Libra took off, that the reserve currency status of the dollar and the euro would be threatened. And the real thing is think how weak the dollar and the euro must actually be for Zuckerbucks to really present a threat. Not because they're illegal, but because it would work. That is a huge, that is a huge tell, if you want to use a poker term, the fundamental weakness in the system. And what the thing I took away from Libra and the way it got shot down, and the fact that government regulation shot it down, is it ended up, everyone's like, Libra's the Bitcoin killer. I'm like, no, Libra's the Bitcoin savior, because you're seeing exactly why Bitcoin works and Libra, as then envisioned, doesn't. Because a letter from the U.S. Senate, throwing shade on the Libra Association, made them all back away and get scared. And it's the weirdest letter. They sent it to Visa and MasterCard and the rest of them, and they said, look, if you do this, not only are we going to look with a harsh regulatory eye at Libra, we're going to look at a harsh regulatory eye at your other businesses, which to me is another, oh my God, you're telling me that this perfectly legal business that they've engaged in for years, you're going to look at it and reassess because of something they're doing over here? Yeah, it's a mafia shakedown. It's like, oh, nice story you got. Hope your daughter's okay. It's like, great. So, to me, that's a big Bitcoin argument. But again, it's like, I don't want to be too rosy-eyed about the immediate moment. Sure, there's things that can happen. And it's interesting the comment that Brian made. You mentioned the First and Fourth Amendment. To me, the thing that leads to mind is the Second Amendment. It's pretty clear the right to bear arms. But, okay, register your weapons. Okay, you can't actually use a magazine that works. You have to have, California, you have to have a tool that pops out the magazine, pops back in, then you have to go find your tool. Meanwhile, you're in a firefight. It's like, okay, that doesn't actually work. It's sequential salami tactics, making it inconvenient, making it registered, making the people known. And to Tommy's point, they may not ban Bitcoin. Sorry?
Making it too expensive to, if you
too much
of
a hassle, too expensive. They're gonna say, fine, you can owe it, no problem. You just need to hold it in an exchange. Well, your key is your coin, so everyone goes, okay, fine. They're not taking from me. They just told me I have to do an exchange. Or if you don't hold an exchange, there's a 10% annual wealth tax on your Bitcoin. Most people will comply. Then it gets
Meanwhile, they're going brr.
Yeah, brr.
Yeah. I love your point about Libra. Compete, don't complain. The United States should let Libra. I mean, first of all, there is some misunderstanding too. All the people in Congress, they just think, oh, they hate Facebook so much and they hate innovation so much. Anything Facebook does, they're going to virtue signal about to their constituents. Like, look, we're hitting back at Facebook. Yes. But yeah, you've got a real point. Like, how confident are they in the dollar that they can't let a private or a multinational, tremendous private corporation create their own money? You should compete, don't complain. But They don't, and of course they complied, Facebook. But it is, I think it is a gateway to Bitcoin. I think it'll help Bitcoin in the long run. The toned down version that's going to come out of Libra, I think it's a good thing. But very, very, very good point you make about it in terms of the overall picture of what gets banned, what gets accepted here. I mean, we're going to have some financial innovation in this golden age decade. I am looking forward to the stable coins. And yes, it's not just going to be Facebook that's going to have their own private money. That the other ones are going to be pulling it off. And the United States won't be able to stop them. Stop everyone. They'll make deals. They'll make deals. They will comply in certain ways that it'll be okay with the U.S. government. All right, Tommy. So I didn't want to interrupt you or anything. Do you have anything else to say about this subject matter that we've expanded upon here?
No, but I will just repeat that if the U.S. government tries to ban Bitcoin, it will be the end of the U.S. dollar, not the end of Bitcoin. So,
pound that like button, everybody. All right, Gordon, did you have anything else to say about what we were just talking about, or is it time to move to the next subject matter here?
We can move on. It was interesting, but next.
All right, so. Beginning of the week, Drunken Miller says he's long Bitcoin. Basically, he likes Bitcoin. It's great. We've had a lot of big names. This has been like the 2 months of big names, whether it be a company like PayPal, which is a huge name, or Drunken Miller, whatever, however you say his name. He's had all sorts of people coming in. Is this why it's pumped to $16,000? And is this just a trickle of what is come here? And should we call this the PayPal pump? Because now this week again, you can buy it on PayPal. So I just threw a lot out on the table there, Gordon. So pick what you want to talk about.
Sure. So I think we all need to return to the fundamental understanding that Bitcoin doesn't care what you think, and I'll expand on that. When you're doing traditional investing, say in the shares of a company, you can value that company. You can do fundamental analysis. You can look at its management team. You can look at its earnings. You can look at its project plans. You can look at its competitors. You can do all that kind of stuff. And if you're really good and you're really clever and you really make an effort to get information that no one else has, you can gain an advantage. So you can value these things. You can't value Bitcoin. You can only price it. Okay, because there's no valuing it. We all have access to the same information. It's worth exactly what the market says it's worth, and not a penny more, not a penny less, always. So we can read tea leaves and try to understand why the price moved, but Bitcoin will never tell us. And the very decentralized nature of it means it couldn't tell us. There's no there there. There's no them. Everyone always says like they're out to get us, or they do this, or they do that. There's no them when it comes to Bitcoin. So I think the way to look at this always is it's a ever pixelating situation, and there's data points. There's like a heat map, but you can't point at one thing ever. Now, there's a broad trend towards institutional acceptance of Bitcoin and crypto. Okay, why? Well, the same reason why they do everything, because there's money to be made there. Okay, that's why they always do it. Okay, God bless them. God bless capitalism. What can I say? They're tiptoeing there because it's a regulatory minefield. But when stuff sticks around after multiple attacks, it's like the little scrawny kid. I didn't personally do this, but you give him the punch down, he keeps on getting up. Eventually, like, okay, fine, whatever, I give up, and then you eventually end up being friends. It's like it's just going to happen. And for J.P. Morgan or whoever that was trash talking it, or all these names that I barely remember anymore. Like, everyone is always, the gold bugs and the JP Morgans, and, it's not backed by anything, people just, just fundamentally don't get it. They've been yapping their mouth off for 12 years. Well, pardon me, but, are we tired of winning yet? Because, every time Bitcoin goes down, every time I sold a Bitcoin, I've regretted it. Every single time. Now, I've sold it rarely, thank God. But it's like every time I've regretted it, because long-term, I'm not Mr. Volatility Trader. I don't have that time or focus, but it's just not going there. So all these institutions are like, look, if the hammer was going to come down, it probably would have come down already. And despite what we're saying, it's probably not coming. And there's money to be made here, and there's money to be made, while the sun shines, make hay, or make hay while the sun shines. And they're getting in there. And what's interesting about PayPal is, Bitcoin does have an accessibility issue. It's not easy for grandma to use, and I want grandma to be able to use it. And Coinbase is taking the edge off that somewhat, and better wallets are taking the edge off that somewhat. But PayPal's really out there, and it's accessible. And I'm seeing my friends buying and selling Bitcoin, or buying Bitcoin using PayPal, and the response seems to be, "Wow, this is surprisingly easy." Okay, wow, that makes me happy, because it's a user interface layer, if you like. The final little, if you do look at the OSI network layer, it's that final little presentation layer that's always been a real pain for crypto. The underlying layers work, but presentation has been bad. And that seems to be being solved. So it's just another bite out of the apple and getting us closer. I remember a few years ago when 2017, when ICOs were all the rage, and everyone's like, "Oh, I'm leaving these stodgy firms because fintech and blockchain and ICOs are the future." And that was kind of like a false wave in a way. And the cool kids were doing fintech. Now the cool kids are like, I want to make some money. And this is going up. So I can't even give you a long extended answer, but I think institutional investment is going to rise because that's where the money is, and it's a self-reinforcing process.
Oh wow, dude, that was a good one, man. Tommy, what is your take?
Yeah, well, and we had just touched on, obviously custodial solutions versus, holding your own keys. Obviously, PayPal and all these more custodial out of the box solutions with the better user experience, that's ultimately good for Bitcoin. Obviously, it's good to get people onboarded and just realizing that, it's not something that's out of their realm of being able to use. Because I think a lot of people, they think cryptocurrency, I don't know how to code, I don't know how to do any of these things, I'm not a drug dealer, whatever the whole mindset is behind it that keeps people out of it. Those walls get chipped away every time a PayPal comes in here and makes it really easy for them to just get their hands on a little bit of Bitcoin. So obviously, bullish, and we just want to remind people, I don't even know if you can get your Bitcoin off of PayPal once you buy it.
It's not. You can't.
So it's
you can.
You can.
No, you can't get it. You can't get your Bitcoin.
Then what do you do with it?
You sell it back
buy
to
it or
them.
sell it. You cash out.
You can sell it back to them. Basically, they become your Bitcoin bank that you can't transfer it to a different wallet.
No, pardon my ignorance. Are you 100% sure you can't transfer it out of Bitcoin? I mean, PayPal.
Yes.
100%.
Yes. Right. Currently,
I'm 99. He's saying he's 100.
I'm 100. Yeah, you cannot get your Bitcoin off of PayPal at this. But your point though is that it gives people. It makes the user interface easier.
It's a taste
for the 80%ers out there. Okay, they're not going to really own Bitcoin. They're going to think they own Bitcoin. But it's right now the user interface is hard. It's hard. All right.
Gordon.
Let me throw this out there.
Hard for grandma.
Well, grandma doesn't have all the money, by the way. The institutions and the federal government and the pensions have all the money. So it's nice when grandma gets it, but it's really nice when the institutions get it, because that's showing that the incumbents that the government cares about are shifting to our side. They don't necessarily care about grandma. Okay, but when Goldman Sachs goes down this direction, basically that's the outsourced treasury, right? Every treasury, Secretary of the Treasury more or less comes from Goldman Sachs. If Goldman Sachs gets in there, then Bitcoin's won. So let me throw this out. The custodianship issue is a big one. I didn't know that about PayPal, what you just pointed out. I'll admit it, and that makes me much less comfortable with PayPal doing this, because I don't want people to get caught in a cul-de-sac and get disappointed or get trapped. That's another road maybe towards confiscating it. But the custodianship developed for a reason with fiat and regular assets, and those reasons do have some applicability when you're talking about groups holding Bitcoin. Okay, not everything can be a multi-sig wallet, And when you're talking about large pensions or large institutions holding crypto, you do need some sort of regulated, at the moment, you need some sort of regulated custodianship relationship. The stakes are just too high. What I'd love to see happen is I want to see the community, not just hold but build and make blockchain-based smart contract regulatorily approved, because they're so good solutions to custodianship in a way that works for institutions. That would open a big door. I'd also like to see something with the user interface love of Coinbase and PayPal kind of wrap around self-custodianship, like that level of ease, that level of online access from anywhere, that level of, yes, it's really you and no one else, but without them holding the keys, and for a solution like that to be widely deployed. I think that may be a good middle ground. But I'm interested in what you guys think.
And I think you hit a good point about custodianship and how that could inevitably lead to confiscation.
Mm-hmm.
Confiscation. And that gets back to governments trying to ban Bitcoin. I think it's more likely if less people are involved in Bitcoin. Obviously, that's a community that they have to decide whether or not they want to actively target.
Mm-hmm.
And the more people that get into Bitcoin, even if it's just getting their toes wet, but they're going to have to decide where the cutoff is there of who they target, who has too many Bitcoin, and who and if we all have some Bitcoin and we all slowly get more and more Bitcoin and get introduced by a custodial service, but then ultimately learn, that makes the possibility that they can do a more subvert attack against the few that are involved. So I'm all for the, I'm a graphic designer by trade, so user experience is everything to me. So I love when big companies get into this and bring new user experience.
Right.
I feel like he's dropping knowledge bombs, but we're catching every third word here.
We got the point. We got the point. I want to. Guy Bennett has a question, but this is not really a question. It kind of sums up a logical, the conclusion here. A question for your guests: how does the government ban Bitcoin when it is on the balance sheets of publicly traded companies? It doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, Kamala.
No. I'm sorry. I got to jump in. Sure it can. There's lots of things that companies and individuals do or don't do over time where regulation changes. Now, would it happen by way of ambush? Maybe not. But there's some assets you could hold before and now you can't. The government changes its laws every 10 seconds. The Environmental Protection Agency changes its laws about what chemicals are allowed to be used and what they're not allowed to be used. And it evolves over time. If you get a social consensus that something's bad for society, that's like saying, wait, cigarette companies can't be banned because they're big. They're on the Dow. Okay, sure. Maybe not all at once, but now you can't smoke in public. Now you can't smoke in private necessarily. You can't smoke around your kids. At some point, it's freaking banned.
All right, but there's a difference between gradual and ban. You said I'm saying they could not ambush. They couldn't pull an ambush like that. Just one day it's legal, the next day it's illegal. Even cigarettes are still legal. It's just slowly over.
I'm sorry. I think
not if Amazon and Walmart.
I think you're being a little bit optimistic. When we went off the gold standard, the rules were put in nearly overnight, and we pissed off Germany, we pissed off England, we pissed off all our trade partners. When we exited from Bretton Woods, when there's a systemic fast threat, like there was, because the dollar reserves were getting, the dollar was getting attacked basically, or when Soros forced the UK out of the exchange rate mechanism with the precursor to the euro, that stuff can happen fast. Okay, you saw that with quantitative easing, you saw that in 2008. So there's a difference between saying it's unlikely and it can't happen, and we need to be cognizant of that. So stuff does happen quickly when people want it to happen quickly.
All right, you got to. You can't rule out a lot of things in life, and so I'm 99.9% sure. The corporations are so powerful now, And the leaders are so they don't stand for anything. They don't stand. Kamala Harris is a pragmatist. She'll do whatever the money tells her to do, type of thing. I'm not. I wouldn't have it as a tremendous. I mean, we've talked a lot about this today about because of Ray Dalio bringing this up. That putting it out there that the United States can make it illegal. That's why we're talking about this, but it's not a big concern of mine. It's not. It's obviously in theory. It cannot be ruled out. I guess. I guess I never could have predicted everything that happened in 2020. So you never know. But it's not on the top of my my worry list, to say the least. Especially when it just seems like so many more people are intertwined with Bitcoin now. It would be quite a change in pace in the United States. It wouldn't be the United States anymore if something like that happened. In my personal, saying what you're saying, Gordon.
Oh, it's like you're like it wouldn't be the United States anymore. Looking at 2020 America, is it the United States anymore exactly? There's a Zen or Buddhist expression, like you can never step into the same river twice. It's changing all the time. If you had told me that, okay, look, when the elections happened, okay, I'm in Sioux City, and there I am in Beverly Hills, and all the, like on Rodeo Drive, everything is boarded up because they're worried about the rioters coming in there and burning things down and stealing Gucci's. And there's talk about civil war and I don't know what I'm allowed to say or not say, what key terms, but this movement or that movement. This is not 2016. This is not 2012. But the thing is, by the time we on the ground figure stuff out, the people who already have the positions have already liquidated their positions. So they're just look. But your point is well taken. Yes, you can use the anything is possible argument to support absurd assertions. Okay, and I'm not going there. It's like maybe Martian, maybe we're all Martians. It's like no, I'm just making more of a technical point and using it to highlight. I think the unique nature of Bitcoin is resistant to that by design, and isn't that interesting?
All right, it's a valid point. You make a good point, and I want to move to something that I think you guys wanted to talk about. It's a little different. Tommy, you wanted to say something about the Ethereum fork, unintended fork?
I'm not going to pretend like I actually understand what the hell actually happened, but it's an eye opener, I think, or it should be an eye opener for everyone. That if it's not really decentralized, bugs can be introduced or bugs can be exploited, or like what happened, nobody knew about it until after it already happened, right? In Bitcoin, you have soft forks that we can't get through for years without everybody getting on the same page. But in Ethereum, we see that a hard fork can happen without anyone really foreseeing it happening, and then all the node operators just have to catch up. So it's definitely something not to ignore, and another reason to be bullish on Bitcoin if you needed it.
All right, Gordon, does this throw a wrench? Does this throw a wrench into Ethereum 2.0 and DeFi? Ethereum had an unintended. What was your take on this? I didn't care.
YouTube was down 2 days ago, but I still use YouTube. I don't know. It's not really.
Exactly.
Not like this. It's look at the. People. I think what's going on is people, because both Bitcoin and Ethereum operate on a blockchain, they conflate what they're about, right? And that's like saying, my Tesla runs on electricity and so does my toaster. My toaster went down. Does that mean Teslas are in danger? Or does that mean that toasters are gone? It's like, come on. It's like the idea of having a distributed, immutable, reliable, shared source of truth ledger is something that in retrospect is becoming obvious and is going to become ubiquitous. What you do with that is going to be different in different situations. And it's not like my toaster is bad because my Tesla is good. It's like sometimes I want toast, sometimes I want to drive. It's like, what am I doing that moment? And I think
right. I guess I wasn't saying it was bullish for Bitcoin as much as if you were an ETH over Bitcoin person and you were looking at them as the same. If you were looking at them as the same thing, like a replacement for money, it's clear now, or if it wasn't clear before, it should be pretty clear now that Ethereum is not Bitcoin at all. So that's basically
beautiful point. Yes, and I think it's beneficial to the world that people begin to tease out. There's something that's good as a replacement for money. There's something that's good for accessing universal computing power. There's something that's good for distributed file storage. Okay, there's something that's good for financial transactions. And the fact that they all use electricity, blockchain, is nice, interesting, take that into account, but they're fundamental different structures, value propositions, and utility sets. And to the extent that Ethereum was looked at as a Bitcoin alternative, it's like, no, you're comparing one thing that's like literally, there's a reason they say gas, in Ethereum. It is a useful commodity that fluctuates based on current utility, expected consumption, and people's perception about what other people are going to do. So, a lot of Ethereum pumping was based on the kind of the greater fool theory, or that maybe the greater wise person theory. And to the extent that people put their money into it based on that, they may make some money, they may do well, but in the very long term, the price of Ethereum is going to correlate highly with the functionality of the Ethereum virtual machine and the technology that's available there. Ethereum is fundamentally a utility token. I mean, its ultimate purpose is like a barrel of oil. You can trade it here, you can trade it there, you can do this, you can do that, but eventually you can put it into a car. Eventually, right? And you're not eventually going to put Bitcoin into anything. Bitcoin is Bitcoin. So people need to distinguish it in their minds. These are early days. I mean, just because this oil well blew up in 1912 doesn't mean I'm not going to, say oil is useless. In 2020, no one's going to use oil anymore, because remember when that oil derrick blew up in Montana? It's like, who cares? This stuff is, these are early days. So Ethereum went down for 10 seconds. Who cares? And by the way, I think that was an issue with a wallet that somehow affected the network. I don't know. I'm not an expert. I'm going to claim a little bit of ignorance here. But, let them fix it and let them make it better. Ask me in 30 years whether it had an impact.
Excellent point there. And again, if you are a Bitcoin maximalist or whatever, just ignore what goes on in Ethereum land. They're not going to be perfect. They are not. That's not money. Bitcoin is the money, baby. Ethereum is whatever they do over there, let them do it. And Ethereum is the next Ethereum. Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin. Separate. It's apples and oranges type of stuff. We've said it here lots of times. It was a big story though, so we want to bring it up there. They have Vitalik to fix everything. It's different. There's a centralized leader. There's all sorts of things going on. I think Gordon, you had something to say about DeFi too. You before the show we were talking briefly about DeFi.
Just not some huge point. Just it's really interesting because it's, I grew up. I was aware during the whole Napster thing and MP3 and Nutella and all this stuff, and I saw how the government and lawsuits RIAA shut down Napster and all these file sharing sites, and Kim.com was kind of a semi-hero of mine. I don't know if you guys know who that is, but
we know who he is.
Like Megashare or whatever. And it's neat to see this sort of Hegelian thesis, antithesis, synthesis thing going on, where every time someone tries to do something and the man tries to shut them down, there's a technological pushback, and we keep on getting towards resilient systems and decentralization. And I just appreciate that DeFi is just another step down that path. I don't think we're there yet, though. I think it's early days. Someone made the comment like we're dealing with, internet money Legos. Okay, but we haven't built our little castle yet. It's just like, oh, cool Lego. So what we're seeing, one of the biggest breakthroughs that happened recently was with the automated market makers. With I think it was Uniswap. That's neat. That's really big. But that's just a part of it. And from a legal perspective, I'm living every day money transmitter and securities regulation law. All my clients deal with these issues nonstop. Is my token a security? What do I do? Am I transmitting value? Do I need to register with FinCEN? And with DeFi, it's fascinating because if the name is accurate, if it's truly decentralized finance, then there's no them there that can go register this security or apply with FinCEN? Who's responsible? Maybe no one. Maybe that's the right answer. So I don't know if I have some big macro point. I just find it very fascinating.
I am fascinated by Uniswap also. It's quite a tool. It is quite it's quite amazing what it can do when you're playing around over there. When you're dumping the hex that you got for free and changing it to something useful.
Oh, you dumped your hex?
Oh well, of course. When it was we're going to get more of it, right? Because of the staking we were forced to do. It was all free. Never buy something you get for free, people. Yeah, I knew they were aiming to get it to worth a penny, and when it got to be a penny, and when it got to be a penny, Bitcoin was worth a lot less. So it was worth like worth 100 satoshis. I was getting 100 satoshi per hex. That's pretty darn. That's pretty. Right now, it's 50 satoshis, but that's a whole nother thing. That's a lot.
Hey, don't forget, Bitcoin Satoshi Vision is now less than 1% of the actual Bitcoin.
Of course,
it can only go up from here, right?
Dude, I gotta say, Gordon, you're a very positive dude. You're a very positive dude talking about DeFi the way you did. There's a lot of Bitcoin people that are just like, it's horrible. Again, if you don't like, ignore it. Compete, don't complain. I am not into destruction. I don't even want to destroy BSV. Now, obviously, BSV is one big cult around one wacko sociopath. But I'm not saying, oh, government, come down and sue them and take them away. They say that about Bitcoin, but I wouldn't say that. Compete, don't complain. That's what.
I'm not actually commenting on BSV's technology being bad. I think that is. I think wise minds can differ. Okay, it is tainted by the people involved to a certain extent, or at least the public perception of those people, and it's just I've met Craig, and whatever, he seems fine in person. I don't really care, but I just don't really care. We had an interesting conversation, but I really care about the technical chops and the use case, and looking at objectively, like if I didn't know these people's names and their backstory, would this thing make sense? And when it comes to BSV, I actually don't know. I admit my ignorance. I'm just kind of laughing because there's all these claims by the groupies. Look, it's passing Bitcoin Cash. BTC is next. Blockstream's evil. I'm like, I'm looking at my clock. I'm waiting for BSV to pass BTC. Not this year. It was just kind of a source of.
Well, that's a common refrain from altcoin fans, and we just mentioned Hex. They really think they get into this cult mentality, and they don't look at the history where they think they have the next Bitcoin. They legitimately think the market cap of their coin will be over that of Bitcoin, which for Hex is absolutely insane. It's built on Ethereum. How could the market cap of something built on Ethereum be greater than what it's built on? I mean, it doesn't make much sense to me at all. But besides the point, I mean, let people dream. I'm speaking through experience, man. I bought my first 2 Bitcoin. It was probably 7 years ago today, or it was in November of 2013. I've seen the altcoin flavors of the month come and go, and everybody try to be the next Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the next freaking Bitcoin, and you sound like a total noob when you're saying my coin is going to be the next Bitcoin. But you're free to do that. That's the world we live in. We kind of went off on a little tangent there, but people love to hear that stuff. Tommy, anything you want to say? The show's going to end pretty soon. Anything about what we just said? Any news at Bitcoin Magazine? Any stories we forgot to bring up? You can go on and on. Whatever you want to say.
Gordon said everything so well. Obviously, all these different shit coins have their use cases. But there's only one Bitcoin. So yeah, I think you guys said that perfectly. As far as what we're doing at Bitcoin Magazine, we're always doing a lot of stuff at Bitcoin Magazine. So I think I will take the opportunity to plug something that we're very happy about. We teamed up with Fold to give away one whole Bitcoin to somebody. So all you have to do to enter to win is sign up for their wait list for their debit card. So they're coming out with a Bitcoin rewards debit card, but you have to go through bitcoinblackfriday.com. So it's a Bitcoin Black Friday and Fold partnership, but you sign up for their wait list and do it through Bitcoin Black Friday, and you're entered to win a whole Bitcoin. So I don't know when the next time you'll ever have a chance to win one whole Bitcoin at any sweepstakes, but that's your chance now.
That's pretty serious.
So Bitcoin, it's I mean, I'm entered to win.
Cool.
But it's bitcoinblackfriday.com, and Bitcoin Black Friday is November 27th, coming up here pretty soon. And you go to that website, there's a bunch of deals where you can spend your Bitcoin and stimulate the circular economy, which is what Bitcoin Black Friday is all about. It's about those Bitcoin only deals in order to get merchants accepting Bitcoin and basically red pilled so that they hold on to that Bitcoin. That's Bitcoin Black Friday. Bitcoin 2021 conference. We've been announcing Jack Dorsey is going to be speaking there. Tony Hawk, Nick Szabo, of course, Chamath Palihapitiya. Just huge headliners. We just announced the venue. It's in LA. So hurry up and get your ticket before the price goes up. Number go up there. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on the show. Keep on doing great work over there at Bitcoin Magazine. Keep on making sure there will be a physical event in Los Angeles in that last weekend in April of 2021. It is coming up, and I have my ticket, and I don't want some Newsom-y type of slick back hair dude canceling it from the government. I want to see Gordon on the streets of LA. We're going to run through Compton together, no doubt about it, down to Long Beach, South Central, and then I'm going to go to the event and see you there. All right. So Gordon, what are your final thoughts? You could talk about anything you want to, legal stuff, what you're doing, any things we didn't talk about, any extensions of topics that we were talking about beforehand. The floor is yours.
I think we're gonna end, the last note was very positive, and I like the red pilling reference. So I like the dropping red pills. I think we're good for now. Keep an eye on DeFi, keep an eye on DAOs, keep an eye on Bitcoin, stack your sats, and I will say one thing: always get your news from multiple sources. Dear fellow Americans and world people, okay, there's an active narrative being formed, and you don't need to be paranoid or believe in conspiracy, but the journalism has lost its objectivity, so you must sort of cross-reference and triangulate into the truth, okay, and just keep your eyes open and keep a critical mind. That's, I guess, my final thought.
Use your heads, people. Think. Do not put people on pedestals and worship them, because you end up letting them do your thinking for you. Don't let the media think for you. We've all got beautiful brains up here. Use it. All right, guests, you were awesome. We didn't even need one golf today, man. We went over an hour. Thank you very much, everyone. Remember, we do this show every Friday. You get a new show every day. Just follow me on Twitter at TechBalt, TechBalt. These guys are linked below. Follow them on Twitter also. So I'm Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister.